We begin this morning with those legal battles. Former President Trump is fighting on multiple fronts.
First, the developments at the federal level. Last night, a U.S. appeals court allowed the Justice Department to resume its review of the documents that it took from Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate last month. Now, the DOJ was appealing a ruling made by another federal judge, a Trump appointee, who had temporarily barred the DOJ from reviewing those documents as part of its criminal investigation into the former president. Meanwhile, in New York, we're covering the fallout this morning after the state's Attorney General, Letitia James, filed a civil lawsuit against Trump, his family, and the Trump Organization, alleging more than 200 instances of fraud. We've got team coverage ahead for you this morning. We're going to start with NBC News correspondent Vaugh Hillyard, who's outside Trump Tower in New York, and NBC News legal analyst Cevallos, who joins us here on set. Vaugh, let's start with you. The New York Attorney General's lawsuit, some very serious allegations here. Walk us through it and also how Trump and his team are responding.
Over the course of a 220-page lawsuit, you guys, the New York Attorney General lays out the 3.5-year investigation that her office took part in to lead here to this moment. The next step would be to go to the state court, and it's the financial penalties and other corporate penalties that could be the biggest impact for Donald Trump, his 3 children, and his family. Over the course of the lawsuit, she alleges that in more than 200 instances that he and the company inflated the value of their properties and their assets. Just take the Trump property, the Trump Tower property, where he lived here in New York, for example. Saying and contending, alleging that he actually made the apartment on paper 3 times larger than it is in reality, therefore inflating the cost by potentially as much as 3-fold. This is a situation where you see in the report, Letitia James write, with the help of his children and senior executives of the Trump Organization, Donald Trump falsely inflated his net worth by billions of dollars to unjustly enrich himself and cheat the system. And throughout the course of the lawsuit, you see the outlining of the falsification of business records, issuing of false financial statements, the ways in which he allegedly engaged in insurance fraud, in multiple cases laid out of ways in which he conspired with these other individuals to commit these violations. But again, it's the potential penalties, not only a $250 million fine that could be laid down, but it would also permanently bar Donald Trump and his children from ever being officers of any corporation in New York City, which could put into question the future fate of the Trump Organization.
Many potential consequences there, and that's not all. Danny, the Attorney General said that she would send a criminal referral to the IRS and to federal prosecutors based on this lawsuit. So what else could Trump be facing?
It is essentially a dare to the federal government, to the IRS and the Justice Department. Here's all the work we've done. You should probably take a look at this. The question is not so much whether or not they will open an investigation. They surely will. Maybe they already have. But whether or not they will ultimately indict is a very different question. Letitia James's complaint and her civil action requires only proof of a preponderance of the evidence, which is 51%, a far cry from the beyond a reasonable doubt standard used in criminal cases. DOJ knows that. The IRS knows that. They're going to consider that beyond just whether or not there is some damning evidence in this complaint. They need to think about whether or not, if they dare to indict Donald Trump, which no one has tried before, can they prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt?
All right, let's turn to the Mar-a-Lago investigation in Vaugh. The federal appeals court now allowing the DOJ to look at the documents that were seized at the estate. What does this mean for that investigation into Trump?
Yeah, this was significant because there was going to be a potential delay of weeks, if not months here, in which the Department of Justice investigators were going to be able to look at particularly the more than 100 documents seized from Mar-a-Lago that were marked classified. The judge in Cannon, Judge Cannon in Florida, had essentially put a hold on this process and left it up to the special master to comb through these documents and determine whether the Department of Justice investigators were going to be able to look at the contents of these documents that were seized. What happened ultimately was an appeal by the Department of Justice to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta. And that was what that new issue last night was from the Circuit Court of Appeals. There were about 11,000 10,000 documents in whole that were seized from Mar-a-Lago. So about 10,900 of them are still going to have to go through the special master, who will determine whether there is executive privilege, client attorney privilege, or issues over classification. But those really, what the Department of Justice believes to be the most important 100 documents, those that had classified markings on them, the DOJ is going to be able to move forward with its investigation, looking into those particular documents while the special master looks through those other thousands of other documents that were not classified in the same way.
And Trump was actually on Fox News last night talking about those documents that were seized at Mar-a-Lago. Let's take a listen.
You had said on Truth Social a number of times you did declassify.
I did declassify, yes.
Okay. Is there a process? What was your process to declassify?
There doesn't have to be a process, as I understand it. You know, there's different people say different things, but as I understand, there doesn't have to be. If you're the president of the United States, you can declassify just by saying it's declassified, even by thinking about it, because you're sending it to Mar-a-Lago or to wherever you're sending it, and there doesn't have to be a process.
Plenty of disagreement on that. So how do you think the DOJ might interpret that claim?
I'm aware of 0 instances where the executive can create some action by just thinking about it. If he doesn't tell anyone, doesn't tweet about it, doesn't write it down in a memo, there is no such thing as executive action by thought alone. You got to do a little more than that.
All right. And bottom line is they haven't made that argument yet in court, right?
There's that too. Yes. There's the fact that his attorneys will not make that same argument in court, even though he's on record saying, I did declassify them apparently by thinking about it. But his attorneys have only gone so far to say is, well, he hypothetically has that power to do so.
Yet again, multiple courts, the actual court and the court of public opinion. All right. Danny Cevallos, Vaugh, Hillyard, thank you both so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.